She is triggered in a nation of 115 million people who had never seen one of their own compete at the highest tier of professional tennis until she came along. To understand the magnitude of this moment, you have to rewind to a time before rankings and prize money and sponsorship deals. You have to go back to Quezon City, to a family whose sporting DNA ran through generations without ever finding its fullest expression in tennis. Eala's mother, Rosemary Maniego Eala, swam competitively at the Southeast Asian Games and brought home a bronze medal in the backstroke in 1985. Her paternal uncle Nolly became chairman of the Philippine Sports Commission. The bloodline was steeped in athletic ambition. But tennis was not the sport of the Philippines. Basketball was. Boxing was. Tennis was a country club game, something you played for leisure, not glory. No Filipino had made meaningful noise on the WTA or ATP tour in the modern era. The infrastructure was not there, the pathway was not there, and the public imagination simply did not accommodate the idea of a Filipino world-class tennis player. Then a grandfather named Roberto Maniego handed his granddaughter a racket. She was 4. By 6, she was competing in tournaments. By 8, she won the under-8 division at the Little Mo International in Palm Beach Gardens. By 13, she was on a plane to Spain, enrolling at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Manacor, leaving behind the humidity and noise of Manila for the Mediterranean wind and red clay of Mallorca. That decision, made collectively by a tight-knit family willing to invest everything in a child's potential, would eventually alter the tennis landscape of an entire country. What the Academy gave Eala was not merely technical refinement. It gave her context. She trained alongside the best juniors in the world. She absorbed the culture of European tennis, where the margins are impossibly thin and mental endurance matters as much as a topspin forehand. Joan Bosch became her coach, and under his guidance she developed into an aggressive left-handed baseliner whose forehand could dictate rallies and whose two-handed backhand offered consistency under pressure. The left-handed delivery gave her angles most opponents found unfamiliar, and her anticipation on the return of serve quickly became a signature strength. She graduated from the academy in 2023 and stepped fully into the professional circuit carrying an education most young players from her region never receive. Her junior resume alone would have warranted attention. She reached world number 2 in junior combined rankings by October 2020 at just 14. She won the Australian Open Junior doubles title with Indonesia's Priska Nugroho that same year, then claimed the French Open Junior doubles the next. In 2022, she lifted the U.S. Open Girls Singles Trophy, defeating Lucy Havlikova in the final and becoming the first Filipino to win a major junior title. These were milestones that generated headlines in Manila but barely registered in the wider tennis consciousness. Junior success is a currency that depreciates quickly once you step onto the professional tour, where veterans with a decade of muscle memory and match intelligence expose every weakness a young player carries. And Eala did carry weaknesses. Her serve lacked pace and variation. Former professionals Greg Rosetsky, Andrea Petkovic, and Martina Navratilova all identified it publicly as the element most in need of development. Her physicality, though increasingly impressive for a player standing 5 feet 9 inches, still needed building to sustain the punishing schedules of the WTA circuit. The transition from juniors to pros is littered with talented teenagers who could not bridge the gap, and from 2020 through 2024, Eala navigated that uncertain middle ground. She won 5 ITF titles during those years, climbing gradually from outside the top 500 to just inside the top 160 by the end of 2024. The progress was real but incremental, the kind that tests patience in an age of instant gratification. Then came Miami in March 2025, and everything changed. Eala entered the Miami Open as the world number 140, a wild-card entrant whose presence on the main draw owed more to organizing committee generosity than to ranking points. Nobody anticipated what followed. In the first round, she dismissed Katie Volinets, then ranked 43, in straight sets. In the second round, she beat former French Open champion Yelena Ostapenko. In the third, She rolled past Madison Keys, a top 5 player and the reigning Australian Open champion, 6-4, 6-2. The scorelines were not flukes. Eala was dictating play, controlling the baseline, and hitting with a clarity that suggested months of accumulated confidence finally finding its release point. A walkover against the injured Paula Badosa brought her to the quarterfinals, where she faced the second-ranked player on earth, Iga Swiatek. And she won. 6-2, 7-5. A composed, aggressive, strategically astute destruction of a player who had dominated women's tennis for the better part of 3 seasons. Eala became the first Filipino to beat a top 5 player at a WTA event. She became the first Filipino to reach a WTA 1000 semifinal. She became the first wildcard in the history of the tour to defeat 3 Grand Slam champions in straight sets at a single event. Jessica Pegula finally halted her in the semifinals in a 3-set thriller, but by then the narrative had irreversibly shifted. This was no longer a promising junior finding her feet. This was a legitimate contender arriving. The significance of that fortnight extended far beyond the court. Filipino fans had flooded social media with every victory. Time zones meant nothing. People set alarms for 3 in the morning to follow live scores. Commentators began comparing her national impact to Manny Pacquiao's. Sports journalist Diane Castillo observed that fans were already treating Eala as if she had won a Grand Slam. And when Eala addressed crowds in Tagalog after her matches, the connection between athlete and nation became something almost unprecedented in tennis, a sport historically dominated by wealthy nations with established development systems. Her ranking catapulted from 140 to 75 in a single week. She became the first Filipino to enter the WTA Top 100. And she was only 19 years old. The rest of 2025 confirmed this was no one-tournament anomaly. She reached the final of the Eastbourne Open on grass, losing an agonizing 3-set match to Maya Joint that included a 12-10 tiebreak in the 3rd set. She made her Grand Slam main draw debut at the French Open. At Wimbledon, she stepped onto center court against defending champion Barbara Krejcikova and competed valiantly in defeat. At the US Open, she defeated Clara Tauson in the first round, becoming the first Filipino ever to win a Grand Slam singles match in the Open era. She won her first WTA 125 title in Guadalajara. By season's end, she sat at world number 50, having climbed 90 spots in 12 months. The 2026 season pushed her even higher. She reached the semifinals of the Auckland Open, the quarterfinals of the Dubai Championships where she defeated world number 8 Jasmine Paolini, and the 4th round of Indian Wells where she beat world number 4 Coco Gauff before Gauff retired. On March 16th, she reached a career-high ranking of world number 29, making her the highest-ranked Filipino in WTA history and cementing her place among the top 30 players on the planet. Her prize money climbed past $876,000 for 2025 alone, making her the highest-earning Filipino tennis player of all time. Endorsements from Nike, Nutriasia, Globe Telecom, BPI, Milo, and others were projected to rise to $3 million in 2026. This is the body of work Forbes evaluated when selecting their 30 under 30 for the entertainment and sports category. But what makes Eala's inclusion particularly meaningful is that it positions her alongside cultural forces from across Asia, from K-pop groups and viral musicians to golfers and track stars, and says clearly that what she is doing on the tennis court carries an equivalent cultural weight. She is not merely playing a sport. She is reshaping what 115 million people believe is possible. The Forbes write-up noted the crowds that follow her at every tournament, and Eala herself acknowledged their role in an interview with the magazine. She told them that the support has been incredible, that tennis can sometimes feel quiet and serious, and that having that energy from Filipino fans makes it special. There is a fascinating feedback loop at work here. Her success draws attention. Attention draws more fans create an atmosphere that energizes her, and that energy fuels further success. Analysts have compared this dynamic to what Li Na achieved for Chinese tennis and what Ons Jabeur accomplished for Arab women's tennis. A single player, through talent and timing and cultural resonance, opens a door that an entire population walks through. Eala was not the only Filipino recognized on the 2026 Forbes 30 Under 30 list. Singer-songwriter Zach Tabudlo bookend the entertainment and sports category. 3 Filipinos made the social impact category. Sage Miguel Malado for his consulting work helping young people become globally competitive, Steph Naval for founding the mental health social enterprise Empath, and Emmanuel Myris Ponon for creating the ASEAN Youth Advocates Network. 2 pairs were recognized in retail and e-commerce, and another pair in consumer and enterprise technology. The Philippine representation was broad and diverse, but Eala stood at the front, her photograph leading the entire entertainment and sports section, a visual statement about whose story commanded the most immediate attention. What comes next for her is the question that animates every conversation about her future. Her current ranking of 37 as of late May 2026 reflects a slight dip after early round exits on clay, a surface she has publicly acknowledged demands more adjustment from her game. Her footwork needs to adapt to the slower conditions, her serve strategies require modification for the higher bounce, and her rally tolerance must expand for the longer points that clay produces. The French Open remains an unconquered frontier. She lost in the first round this year to Iva Jovic, a young American of Serbian descent who is part of Eala's own social circle on tour. The defeat stung, but it did not redefine. Hard courts remain her kingdom, and the North American swing later in 2026 will offer opportunities to reclaim ranking points and push back toward that career-high territory. Her game still has room for growth, and that is perhaps the most exciting dimension of this story. Her serve remains the element most in need of evolution. If she can add 15 to 20 kilometers per hour on her first delivery and develop a more reliable kick serve, her hold percentages will climb, and she will enter more return games without the pressure of protecting her own service games on thin margins. Her physical conditioning continues to improve, but the demands of a full WTA calendar require a baseline of endurance that only years of competing at this level can build. She is only 21. The biological clock of athletic development is on her side. There is something poetic about the timing of this Forbes recognition. It arrives in the same week as the French Open, tennis's most prestigious clay court event, where Eala's first-round loss reminded everyone that greatness is not a straight line. It arrives while she is still climbing, still learning, still losing matches that will teach her things no training session can. It arrives not as a coronation, but as a snapshot of a journey in progress, an acknowledgement that what she has already accomplished is remarkable and that what she might yet accomplish could be historic. For the Philippines, Eala's presence on this list carries a weight that transcends sport. It signals to every young Filipino with an unconventional dream that global recognition is achievable, that geography and economic circumstance do not have to be permanent barriers. The infrastructure for tennis development in the Philippines remains limited compared to established tennis nations, but Eala's success is already sparking new interest. Young players are picking up rackets because of her. Parents are investigating pathways